These weren't just German cars, they were off-road beasts built for war, wilderness, and everything in between. From communist trucks to Porsche prototypes that could swim, these 20 forgotten machines rewrote the rules of adventure. The IFA W50 4x4 was a truck so East German, it probably came with a complimentary copy of Das Kapital and a stern warning against capitalist roaders. Built from 1965 to 1990, this utilitarian vehicle was designed to survive the winter and even the apocalypse. Under the hood, it sported a 6.56-liter four-cylinder diesel engine, churning out a modest 125 horsepower. To be fair, it wasn't exactly built for drag races. It was built to haul 5.3 tons of whatever the state deemed necessary. Off-road, the W50 was surprisingly adept. Its 4x4 configuration, combined with a lockable differential and robust suspension, allowed it to tackle rough terrains with relative ease. It even managed to climb the spectator stands at Budapest's Népstadion during a test. Today, the W50 is a cult classic among vintage truck enthusiasts and those who appreciate vehicles that double as Cold War memorabilia. The Trabant 601 Kübel was Cold War charisma on four wheels. Stripped of doors, decked in utilitarian drab, and capped with a canvas roof, this East German quirky rig was built for military patrols, border guards, and forest rangers who didn't mind getting a little wind in their uniforms. Its shell was made of duraplast, that is, fibers and resin, molded into a body so light it practically floated over potholes. Under the hood, a 594 cubic centimeter two-stroke twin-cylinder buzzed out 26 horsepower. Not much, but just enough to scoot across muddy paths and snowy outposts with a certain wheezy determination. There was no luxury here, but that was the point. This was a functional field vehicle made in a land of constraints, where form always followed function. Today, the Kubel's minimalist charm and cartoonish profile turn heads at vintage rallies. It's rugged, it's rare, and somehow it made Spartan stylish. At first glance, the Volkswagen ILS looks like something left behind by a retreating army. Boxy, bare bones, and just a bit confused about whether it's a car or a crate on wheels. But underneath that lack of aesthetics is a brilliant piece of mechanical thinking. Designed in the late 70s for the West German military, the ILS was handed off to Volkswagen after Audi did the early legwork. Ironically, it's that early Audi tinkering that gave birth to a clever all-wheel drive system, one that would eventually evolve into Audi's now famous Quattro. The ILS came with a 1.7-liter four-cylinder engine, full-time 4WD with locking differentials, and a gearbox that included a crawler gear for climbing things cars had no business climbing. It wasn't fast, but it didn't fail to get the work done. To prove this, in 1980, this unassuming chunk of steel entered the Paris-Dakar Rally and casually took first place, beating flashier, faster, more expensive machines. You might have never imagined that there was once a Porsche that could swim, but it did exist. Meet the 1955 Type 597 Jagdwagen, the famous hunting car. Built when West Germany needed a light military vehicle, Porsche threw its name into the helmet. The result? A 4WD off-roader with a rear-mounted 1.5-liter flat-4 engine and enough ground clearance to scale a goat path blindfolded. The Jagdwagen wasn't just good at climbing, it could float. Early prototypes came with actual propellers and paddles. Yes, paddles. This thing was a part-time boat. Structurally, it rode on a stiff steel monocoque and used a fully independent torsion bar suspension. That gave it surprising agility off-road, especially for something that looked like a Beetle crossed with a metal lunchbox. Only 71 were built, likely because amphibious sportsmen are a niche market. Today, survivors are prized as rare oddities. Half war machine, half gentleman's toy. Craving more forgotten legends? Smash that like and subscribe button, and let's keep it moving. Step into the world of pre-war luxury and military muscle with the Mercedes-Benz G4 W31, produced between 1934 and 1939. This grand beast was no ordinary SUV. It was a 3-axle 6-wheel drive giant, built to impress and dominate. Under the hood, a robust 5.0 to 5.4-liter inline 6 engine pumped out around 100 horsepower, enough to haul dignitaries and military brass through rough terrain and state parades. The G4's off-road chops were impressive for its time. Its 3-driven axles and impressive ground clearance let it conquer dirt roads, hills, and mud with surprising ease. Mostly used by high-ranking officials in Nazi Germany, it was as much a symbol of power as a practical military vehicle. With only about 57 units ever made, each was hand-built and richly appointed inside. Leather seats, wood trim, and all the pomp you'd expect. Today, the G4 remains a rare icon of German engineering and history. Most folks know the Volkswagen Type 181, the utilitarian thing that was a favorite for West Germany's army and later the public. But Porsche's Type 181, that's a rare twist in the off-road saga. Back in the 70s, Porsche and VW were tightly linked. They even shared dealerships. Porsche, obsessed with cracking the American market, took the VW thing, gave it a Porsche makeover, and slapped on a 914 engine and 5-speed gearbox. The result was a posh, more capable off-roader with better suspension and a nicer gauge cluster. However, when Porsche pitched this Americanized thing to US dealers, the reception did not go as expected. Porsche built only 5 of these upgraded Type 181s before pulling the plug. One lucky example made it to the US thanks to a Nevada dealer, and today it's the only known survivor of the original batch. Basically a unicorn for Porsche and off-road fans. The VW Golf family was already more ubiquitous than a coffee shop chain, but in the late 1980s they decided to go country. Unsurprisingly, the new car was called the Golf Country, a limited-run, hand-built, off-road twist on the MK2 Synchro. Under the hood sat the familiar 1.8-liter inline-4 making 89 horsepower, paired with a 5-speed manual whose shorter gearing managed the extra 350 pounds. Finished by Steyr Daimler Puch in Austria, each one received a tubular subframe and a 4.7-inch lift. Ground clearance jumped to over 7 inches, protected by skid plates and sleeves around the CV joints. On dirt roads and rocky tracks, the Synchro's viscous coupling AWD sent torque rearward as needed, switching seamlessly from front-drive thrift to full-time 4-wheel tenacity and off-road. It performed with the poise of a seasoned trail runner. Today, it remains one of the best VW collectibles. The Porsche 356 was not just any classic car, it was where Porsche's story began. Introduced in 1948 by Ferry Porsche in Austria, the 356 merged Volkswagen roots with racing ambition. Its rear-mounted air-cooled 4-cylinder, initially 1.1 liters with 40 horsepower, lived in a lightweight aluminum body that could have doubled as a paperweight, but performed excellently off-road. By 1950, steel bodies replaced aluminum shells. Smooth curves and a split windscreen gave way to a single pane in 1952, making every 356 look like it was blowing a kiss at the wind. Over its run to 1965, it evolved through Pre-A, 356A, 356B, and 356C, adding curved glass, power, disc brakes, and a penchant for speed. The Speedster variant kept things minimal, a low windshield, and a grin. On track, 356 won races from Le Mans to Mille Miglia, cementing Porsche's sporty DNA. Collectors now pay fortunes. Nothing says timeless like a 356 idling in the driveway. The VW G60 Classic was the one that behaved like it swallowed a scroll-type supercharger for breakfast. It was a humble MK2 shell, hiding a 1.8 G-liter supercharged flat 4 that cranked out 160 horsepower and around 210 Nm of torque. VW introduced it in August 1988 as a limited edition nod to forced induction fans. A 5-speed manual gearbox channeled power mainly to the front wheels, though a Synchro version offered full-time AWD. The chassis remains largely stock, McPherson struts up front, semi-trailing arms at the rear, and 4-wheel discs. Visually, it was low-key. Subtle G60 badging on the grille, standard steel wheels wrapped in grippy rubber, and stock bumpers that belie its hidden prowess. But the cabin was all MK2 Golf. Straightforward plastics, comfy cloth seats, and a steering wheel. That's just the right size to remind you this is still a driver's car. Only 13,000 were produced, so if you find one, you hold a rare piece. Now here's a machine that rewrote the rules before the world knew there were any. Meet the Tempo G1200. Built in pre-war Germany, this off-road renegade came with not one but two engines, each a two-cylinder, two-stroke ILO unit sitting on opposite ends of the frame. With a combined 38 horsepower and the ability to run front, rear, or both engines on demand, the G1200 could claw its way through mud, snow, or battlefield ruins without breaking a sweat. Its tubular backbone frame, independent suspension, and four-wheel steering gave it agility ahead of its time. Add a pendulum axle and all-wheel drive, and you had a vehicle that could dance through chaos. Only about 1,300 were ever made, mostly exported to neutral countries. It didn't win the Wehrmacht's heart, but it sure won a spot in history as one of the most eccentric and capable German 4x4s ever built. The 1981 Mercedes-Benz G-Class W460 was the SUV equivalent of a tank in a tuxedo. Under the hood, you had choices ranging from the modest 240 GD diesel with a whopping 71 horsepower to the slightly more enthusiastic 280 GE petrol variant, pushing out 148 horsepower, which wasn't for speed but efficiency. Fuel economy? Let's just say it preferred a drink, averaging around 16.5 liters per 100 kilometers. In 1981, Mercedes decided to spoil its drivers with luxuries such as automatic transmissions, air conditioning, and power windows. Because who doesn't want to feel a breeze while crawling up a mountain? Despite its utilitarian roots, the G-Class found fans in high places. Literally. The Pope had one, dubbed the Pope-mobile, complete with a clear dome for waving at the masses. Today, the W460 is a classic, reminding us that sometimes function over form isn't such a bad thing. The Volkswagen Type 2 was introduced in 1950. This rolling box of charm was VW's post-war masterpiece. Practical, lovable, and impossible to ignore. The split-window bus especially, pure magic. With its iconic round headlights, upright windshield, and sunny disposition, it looked like it was always smiling, even when covered in dust. And yes, while it wasn't born to be a rock crawler, but off-road conversions gave it surprising grit. Pop one on lifted suspension, throw on chunky tires, and suddenly it's tackling trails like a happy-go-lucky mountain goat. That rear engine layout? Great for traction on loose terrain. But the real beauty was its versatility. Camper, cargo van, or weekend trailblazer, it did it all with vintage flair. Whether parked by a beach or climbing a fire road, the Type 2 always made it look like a joyride. It's not just a vehicle, it's a vibe. Once upon a time, the Shah of Iran asked Mercedes for a proper off-roader, so they teamed up with Steyr Daimler Puch and gave birth to the W460. By 1986, the 300 GD carried the torch as a descendant. It had a 3.0-liter inline-5 OM617 diesel engine, rated at a modest 88 horsepower and 127 pound-feet, yet famed for cruising past 620,000 miles without a hiccup. In a world chasing horsepower, this G-Wagon was more endurance athlete than sprinter. Sideways, it was all boxy silhouette, slab-sided doors, and flat glass everywhere. Underneath, a ladder frame, rigid axles, and that legendary torsion beam front suspension let it tackle Sahara dunes or Arctic ice rinks with equal aplomb. Ground clearance? A lofty 7 inches, enough to clear most tree stumps or small livestock. The interior was curiously civilized. Cushioned seats, purposeful dash layout, and enough headroom to wear a helmet. This intentional approach to luxury has made it a favorite in the world of luxury cars today. Mercedes trucks weren't just heavy haulers, they were armored workhorses with an attitude. Born from a company that traced its roots to 1866, Ulm fire engine factories, Mercedes perfected air-cooled diesels and rugged drivetrains. By the 1950s, models like the Merkur and Jupiter 6x6 were prized by militaries and industries for their uncanny ability to devour mud, sand, and rocky trails without complaint. Under that hood sat air-cooled V8s or straight-six diesels that refused to overheat, even under the Sahara sun or Arctic freeze. Their 4x4 and 6x6 layouts, coupled with lockable differentials, meant traction was always on call. Cab interiors were Spartan, think steel benches and a dashboard that doubled as a lunch table, because luxury was for sedans, not these battlefield behemoths. By the late 60s, Rarest merged with Fiat's truck division, but left a legacy of indestructible off-road icons. Today, vintage examples still show up through mud bogs and military reenactments. It didn't try to be loud, flashy, or intimidating, but the Borgward B2000AO didn't need to. In post-war Germany, this utility truck came wrapped in steel simplicity, with a face like a frown and the soul of a mountain goat. The 2.4-liter inline-six was never in a rush, pushing out just 82 horsepower, but off the road, that didn't matter. Ground clearance hit 260 millimeters, and it could wade through 750 millimeters of water without drama. Leaf springs, a rigid chassis, and selectable 4WD gave it sure-footed traction through mud, snow, and gravel, earning quiet respect from the Bundeswehr. It hauled troops, ammo, comms gear, whatever fit under its canvas roof. No synchro on the gearbox meant every gear change was deliberate, but reliability nearly unmatched. And unlike many rivals, it had an unshakable calmness in chaos. Today, it's not just remembered, it's admired, precisely because it never tried to impress. It just worked. Introduced in 1953 as the all-wheel drive sibling of the L28, the Hanamag AL28 carried a modest 1.5-ton payload, yet strutted like it could swallow 7. Under that alligator hood lived a 2.8-liter, pre-chamber diesel thrumming out about 70 horsepower. Not exactly rocket fuel numbers, but in a 4x4 truck, grunt matters more than gallop. The AL28 found itself steering through mud, snow, or dusty West German training grounds. Selectable front axle engagement meant you could switch from city to wilderness really fast. Top speed hovered around 72 kilometers per hour, which was plenty for outrunning boredom, if not rival trucks. Inside was sparse. Vinyl seats, a Spartan dash, because comfort took a backseat to dependability. Leaf springs and a rigid frame scoffed at rough terrain, and a 750mm fording depth let it wade through puddles that made lesser trucks hesitate. In short, the AL28 didn't flaunt, it functioned. The DKW Munga was Germany's answer to the question, what if a Jeep had a two-stroke heart and a fondness for mud? Built by Auto Union from 1956 to 1968, this boxy brute was powered by a 900 cubic centimeters three-cylinder two-stroke engine, delivering a modest 40 horsepower. It featured permanent 4WD, a 4-speed manual transmission, and a top speed of around 98 kilometers per hour downhill with a tailwind. Despite its humble power plant, the Munga was a favorite among NATO forces, the German border police, and farmers who needed a vehicle that could plow through fields and forests without complaint. Its off-road prowess was legendary, thanks to a lightweight design of around 1,653 pounds and a suspension setup that cruised over potholes. It even found a second life in Brazil as the DKW Munga. The Munga's simplicity was its charm, no fuss, just a rugged companion that got the job done. The Volkswagen Type 181 was affectionately dubbed the Thing in the US because boxy German convertible didn't quite roll off the tongue. It started life as a military utility vehicle but soon became a civilian off-road favorite, charming folks from Mexico to Malibu. With its 1.6-liter air-cooled flat-4 engine churning out a whopping 46 horsepower, it wasn't exactly a speed demon, but it had character in spades. Off-road, the Thing held its own. Its lightweight design and simple mechanics made it surprisingly adept at navigating rough terrains, especially in lighter off-road conditions. The military versions even featured reduction boxes for better ground clearance. The Thing's design was delightfully utilitarian. Removable doors, a fold-flat windshield, and a convertible top that invited the elements in. It was as if Volkswagen challenged the notion of what a car should be, and in doing so, created something truly unique and classic. Meet the VW Tripper LT 4x4, a van that ditched cargo duty and went full-on dirt warrior. Born from the humble Volkswagen LT, this boxy brute was reimagined for the kind of adventures that laugh at paved roads. With full-time four-wheel drive, chunky tires, and a tall, no-nonsense stance, the Tripper LT doesn't just drive off-road, it dominates it. Builders often yank out the original 6-cylinder gas engines and slap in turbocharged 2.5-liter diesel mills like the D5252T, giving it that much needed grunt to climb, crawl, and roar through brutal terrain. You'll spot these in wild off-road events across Europe, pulling stunts that make SUVs look shy. Think water crossings, deep mud, and brutal hill climbs, all in a van. But what really makes the Tripper LT shine is its homemade character. It's part Overlander, part battle wagon, and fully unstoppable. Not fancy, not fragile, just damn cool. The World War II Swim Wagon. Type 166 went so far off the road that it drove on water. Designed by Porsche in 1942 and built by VW, this amphibious oddball could ditch mud for lake crossings. Its 1.1-liter flat-4 engine produced 25 horsepower, pushing it to 80 kilometers per hour on land and 10 kilometers per hour afloat. Engage four-wheel drive in first gear or reverse. The rest is two-wheel confession. The pressed steel hull was so watertight that steering on water meant turning the front wheels like rudders. A retractable propeller dropped at the rear, driven directly by the engine. This contraption served on muddy Eastern Front trails where standard vehicles sank without ceremony. Inside, you sat amid benches and bare metal, wearing waterproof gear or mud-stained boots. No creature comforts here. Between 1942 and 1944, over 15,000 were built, making it history's top-selling amphibious car. And today, surviving Schwimmwagens are regarded as museum treasures. Who knew Germany had this many off-road secrets? Not to speak of a list of this crazy. Which one of them caught your attention? Let us know in the comments.